Sıkmış koluna elin adamını beni orta yerinden çatlatıyor. Ağzında sakızı şişirip şişirip arsız arsız patlatıyor. Biz böyle mi gördük?
Istanbul itself, Camila, and the places either that we visited, we already started talking about a few, but maybe we need to highlight others. Impressions of Istanbul, and also maybe bring us to a few places that we went together as a family.
Yeah, well, obviously, Istanbul's very historical, like I already said. So there's a lot to do there, like the museums. We went to the Anthropology Museum, the Science Museum, the Islamic Arts Museum, like literally 700 different museums, which, by the way, are super cheap. So, and there's so much like information and so many things to see, especially in the arts one, like a bunch of statues, a bunch of paintings and stuff that you probably wouldn't see in the States or in any other place. So you do get your money's worth going to those museums. So I do recommend, because you wouldn't learn half the things that we did without going to those museums.
Yeah, we and a lot of people are going there. We did the regular tourist spots, which was the Galata Tower. We did the Hagia Sophia. We went to the Basilica Sistine, which we'll talk about. But to me, as I said, the museum experience was really unique because, putting aside how cheap it was, to be able to be confronted that what you've read in books or you've seen in Netflix movies, or even people that have tried to bastardize, the culture and present, Alexander the Great or others, when you're faced with whether it be sarcophages, so tombs, or statues of David from the 3rd century, or paintings.
Alexander the Great's grave, just in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit.
You're very humbled, because you realize that if the U.S. was only discovered in 1492, right, even though we know there was population on the continent, these guys were doing a lot of things before.
Well, the first civilizations,
all of this.
The first civilizations ever known today in mankind start there in Turkey. So it's kind of just like, people have been there for a while.
They've been there for a while.
So there's a lot to look at.
So
and there's probably a lot that people haven't even found out. And we'll talk about that when we get to Cappadocia. Like, people are still discovering new things.
That's an exciting thing too. You're right, man. Is that through archaeological sites and other interest groups, they're finding a lot about how these people thought, the engineering capabilities they had, the mathematical. So, and I think also that's what we found out when we went to the science, is that they were operating on people, on cataracts. They were already had instruments for gynecology and urology for men. Even people I could have used it with my back problems I've had recently. Decompression machines, and you're just like, Jesus. I'm like, these guys were ahead of everybody.
Well, funny enough, in the beginning of the school year, we have to do this thing called an extended essay, and for some reason I was like, okay, I'm just going to do Islamic medicine, and I was like, I'm not really interested in this, but it seems an easy enough topic to do. We go to this museum, and in the science museum they have this clock that would help you tell time and things like that. It was a water clock, right? And I was reading about my essay, obviously researching for my essay that I had to do, and they sent that freaking clock that we saw to one of the kings in France, and he sent it back.
Charlemagne, to be precise.
Yes, and he sent it back because it was black magic, and I was like, I'm like reflecting, like in the museum, I was like, damn, these people were dope as hell, and I'm like, the French were stupid. Like, you sent it back. Because like, these people had it figured out.
France was going through the Dark Ages, and anything that went against either religious beliefs or very deeply held, let's say, tribal values were scary to them.
The problem with the whole like medicine thing, and I saw it in the museum, was that I guess Western Europe or whatever, they were more like religious when it came to sicknesses and things like that.
Yeah.
So when the Islamics came out with like, no, this is how the body works, this is what the body needs, and if you do like research into it, they use some astrology in some of their practices, I guess. And originally I was going to write about that because it was extremely controversial when it first came out. But astrology was a huge thing. That was also another whole thing in the science the astronomy section of that museum, people were using astrology to try to figure out like sicknesses and things like that, and what vitamins people needed or how they needed to take care of their bodies and stuff. So yeah, I just found it really funny that I decided to study a topic that I was inevitably going to go see that I didn't know I was going to go see later.
Correct. And then when you go through the Islamic arts one, and we were talking about before we were shooting, is that to have, you know, the first Quran written and as they just kept on collecting these books and calligraphy, right? As we see this even through other cultures, Japan and other places, China, and then the importance of writing down information, and you just see that the patience that these cultures needed to have while they were going through upheavals, because sometimes these tribes or these different groups were coming in and maybe ruling for 230 years, sometimes 400, others longer periods of time, others much shorter, but what's fascinating is that throughout this violence, throughout this trade, throughout these integrations of culture, there's still a respect for the arts, a respect for science, for mathematics, and making it progress too. So, and I think you see that throughout even the construction, right? From an architecture standpoint now, you know, let's go out on the sea. When we're on the Bosphorus, we did that cruise, right? Now listen, if you can go in the spring, maybe summer I heard is very hard, but go in the spring maybe, because we were on the water.
Okay,
and
that
it was
so bad because the jet lag was also horrendous too, because it was one of the first days we got there. So here I am, I'm passing out, like I'm buried in my jacket, and the stupid tour guide lady comes, she's, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Woman, I'm freezing on your damn boat. Like I can't hear what you're saying,
Yes.
and I'm jet lagged. Please leave me alone."
Well, to be
like,
fair,
you know,
fair, she did her best effort to speak in English, but essentially she was very soft spoken. So when she grabbed the microphone, and we know we were going to see a lot of architecture along the river, but she's like, "Oh, hello, thank you." And so that lasted for a good fucking hour.
Yeah,
and
it would go in and out
Oh, no,
of like
2 hours,
music
actually.
and stuff, and I'm like, bro.
So like, the best part of that Bosphorus cruise was they kept on serving us tea because we were freezing. They gave us mini sandwiches, and that's something, by the way, the level of service is unbelievable.
Customer service is
Customer
so great.
service is so good, and we'll talk about that in part 3 a little more. So that's the water, right, Camila? Let's the Basilica cistern to me was just
so cool. I didn't even know that was a thing until we pulled up to the place. I was like, "What the hell is this?"
yeah,
and then we went inside.
We'll
I was
put the
like, "Oh,
pictures.
shit."
We'll put the pictures for you guys. But it's so you understand, it was an underground water storage that was built. They brought in columns from all different regions, especially the Roman.
It was cool because all the columns are different.
All
of
the
them.
columns are different.
Like,
and,
bro, they were too lazy to just.
and
make
they
the same
realized
one.
they
Like,
needed water to survive, so they needed to store it. So here, this magnificent underground engineering feat. It was kind of we found out during COVID, because the world was locked down. They took the time to build kind of platforms where people can walk around, fill it up with water again, and put dramatic effects with lights. You know, sometimes a bit exaggerated with the statues.
yeah, and they had little art pieces in there too.
Yeah,
like,
but the
the
light show and the different colors, it wouldn't need it if it was just lit up normal, but of course it gives you an effect. But it just, for me, I was deeply impressed by that one. Obviously now, whether you're in the Hagia Sophia or the other Sultan type mosques, whether small or large, the mosques are quite impressive, right? Obviously the Hagia Sophia commands a lot of attention because it was the Christian Catholic Church that was transformed, right? But obviously the Blue Mosque, unfortunately, was under construction, so we didn't get the full effect. But then we went to the Sultan one. I was like, wow, it is quite beautiful, and it is very awe-inspiring. Some people can have beef with the separation of men and women. Obviously, that's the religion. We accept that, and as you go through, there's still a tremendous amount of respect for women, and that's what I found also that was very pleasant and surprising to me, is on top of the customer service, there is a deep love for family, there's a deep respect and love for women, and especially for children, and especially how my boys were treated, how you were treated. Even to the point, you remember, I'd make sex jokes nonstop with the young guys, and they'd get super uncomfortable. But it was kind of cute because when they blushed. So that's Istanbul. There were obviously there's other parts, but I think the museums, the Bosphorus, the Hagia Sophia, the Topkapi Palace, which is just amazing. But we then about 2-3 days, 4 days in, we obviously had a guide. Maybe you'll talk about that. But we took a flight, which was an hour flight to the central Turkey, Anatolia, on the Asian side, which is Cappadocia. So Cappadocia, for people that don't know, it's a semi-arid region in central. It is mostly known because of its really unique topography, landscape. Gorum National Park is there. There are a lot of ancient ruins and churches that were transformed into also mosques. There's over 500 hotels.
Okay.
And sometimes there's a city that has basically for every 4 individuals there's a hotel. There's 500 hotels and caves, and then there's the underground cities, and all this was topped off by a magical hot air balloon ride. But let's talk a bit about in detail about Cappadocia for you, Camila, what you experienced there, and then we'll get to that hot air balloon ride.
Well, I just remember flying in. I was like, where the fuck are we? Because it's kind of just in the middle of nowhere. So you're like, whoa, there's not a town for days around here. Okay, like we're stuck. So you kind of like show up and you're just like, okay, this is like kind of small. You'd think it's not cool or whatever. But you get to the hotel and it's like a cave. It's literally built inside of a rock, our hotel. So you get to your room and you're like, okay, it's all rock. Like your sink is rock, the countertops are rock.
Yeah.
Like your nightstand is rock.
The roads are dusty. Yeah.
Like the road, there's no roads.
Right.
Forget and the driving was absolutely a nightmare because it's like these tiny little roads, these huge buses are driving. So it was small and it was cute and it was a little bit chaotic. And I don't want to say it needs to be gentrified, but they're still in the process of building.
Well, there's a lot of construction. Unfortunately, the sad part when things get a lot of attention nowadays, they then guess what? There's already a lot of tourists that are coming on there, but as I said, the roads are not completely done, but they're starting. You're seeing the construction. You're seeing new sidewalks. It is quite beautiful and quite striking. To have all this. Yeah, I mean, it was. You have to imagine that up until the 1960s, all the way from early century, people were living in these caves until the government was like, well, wait, it's a little too. We need to make money off this.
Hold on.
So you need to get out of the cave. So remember, we visited an ancient monastery.
We visited a lot of little ancient cities and stuff, and the tour guide would tell us stories, and you have to climb up these little rocks, and you look at all the windows.
Yeah.
And they had little holes for pigeons. Those are their messengers. So forget the mail. You had pigeons.
Yes, there was
a whole pigeon culture.
There was pigeon FedEx.
Yes, pigeon FedEx, and there was a whole pigeon culture. I swear, the tour guide was talking for 15 minutes about how they got pigeons to deliver their mail, which was fascinating. And they kind of just look like penises. So huge rock penises.
They're called fairy chimneys.
Chimneys, but they look like penises. So it looked like rock penises sticking out of the ground with a bunch of holes in them. So that's what people were living in, like legitimately. And then you just look around the city, and it's just surrounded by penises, rock penises.
For people to understand, there was a massive volcanic explosion that created these fairy chimneys and these different caves and structures and unique topography. So it feels very Star Wars-ish, right?
It's weird. It's like, whoa.
It's
very,
super, super cool.
And we lived in Colorado near the mountains, but it wasn't the same. I was like, oh, this is.
It had nothing to do.
And the rock was really soft, which was surprising. Like you could hit it and it would fall, but it was holding a huge.
Yeah.
People were living.
Well, that's why people within a few months could dig out.
Yeah.
Let's say if I was walking, it's like here I'm walking and I see a tree that I can carve into. They saw a rock. They're like, you know what? That looks like a good place to set up.
Well, yeah.
And then they would carve out, and they would have their family there. They would set up the kitchen, and the monastery was like this living and breathing world where they had the church on top. They would make honey wine. They would also be grains. Remember, they had the wheel to make bread. And going back to that pide example I gave, where bread was also attached to religion, as we know, the Eucharist. So it is quite fascinating how they were also able to blend in different religions and live together. I certainly felt very, if Istanbul is the trade and hustle and bustle and this major city, but you can, through the old city, which we'll talk about, you can detect, okay, the past, but where the future is going. This is really still the past to me. It just feels very anchored in time. It feels very peaceful, and
it's
that's
almost like ghost towny, but it's not.
well,
like,
that's why. And then
because there's people living there, but
Yes.
you're kind of just stuck.
but everybody's super relaxed, and I just feel I'm worried.
It's quiet.
You talk about gentrification, but I'm worried that then it becomes, and I'm sure it already exists. It becomes like a yoga resort centric Tulum style place where then everybody invades it and be like, it's like, so I went to Cappadocia and I lived in a cave, you know, that type of stuff. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry I made it sound like a California one girl,
I
but you know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it needs to be gentrified, but I think
It's unique.
it definitely is.
So let's
Like, it's different. It's different.
Speaking of uniqueness, in the early 1960s, this gentleman, I think he was doing some work on the house, and he wanted to knock down a wall, and then he realizes, like, wait, I'm like, there's something underground here. And then as they kept on digging, he encountered an underground city, Derinkuye, and there's another one, and they keep on finding these new cities where apparently the story goes, and listen, there's a documentary on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse, which maybe contradicts this theory, but the tour guide certainly affirmed the known theory, which is the Assyrians were attacking. So Assyrians were part of Syria, and so these people who were in this area dug underground cities and dwellings and stayed there, even with their cattle, their horses, the cattle, and their families, and were able to kind of survive while these troops were going through, so they wouldn't get killed.
Yeah,
But the problem is they kept on finding like deeper and deeper and like these and kind of this cohesive system of underground cities. Now, we went through just maybe 2-3 levels. Could we talk about that? How did you feel during your underground visit?
I'm like so claustrophobic. I think honestly, like my worst nightmare is being buried alive, which is exactly what that felt like. So just think like these narrow little caves that you gotta like walk. I don't know what the hell the size these people were.
Well,
but,
people were shorter back
like,
then.
can you imagine? I would be cramping by the end of the day walking through this little damn tunnel. Like, you know what I mean? But you have to walk through something, and then it's like a huge circle, and then there's like a circle over there. It's like the bedroom.
Yeah.
A circle over here, and then they had these huge stone doors. And he used to roll the stone doors over the thing, and I remember just sitting there and I was like, when do we get to leave? I don't like it, because it was very like, and I can't imagine for people that were taller than me, because I was like, ugh.
I think I did all right in level 1 and level 2, and I was kind of impressed because level 1 is where they kept the horses and the cattle.
Yeah.
And then they had the fire pits, and they found a way also to get the smoke out. But although I'm like, well, why would you do that if you try not to be caught? But whatever, that's a different story. But then by the time you get to the 3rd level, you're just like, okay, my head is touching the rock. I'm like, I need to get out of here. But it just shows, for me, the underground city shows the perseverance again of these people who were very smart to do this, to sacrifice themselves in a certain way and figure out, well, this is what we need to do to survive. And apparently they're finding more and more. So if you watch the Netflix,
It's definitely really cool.
it changes the perspective. It said that these underground cities actually existed way before the date that the tour guide confirmed, and there was something attached more to ancient flooding and an ancient apocalypse. So go look at it, and then you guys make up your mind. But certainly that region and that city that we went to, for me, there's a certain mystique to it. Now let's go.
Scary.
Let's go to our spiritual, for me, experience of the hot air balloon
There was
ride
nothing
at dawn.
spiritual about that. I was freezing my balls off.
Okay, you were cold. Sure,
It was 24 degrees.
It was 24 degrees because we did go in January. Oh, was it January yet? No, it's still end of December, right?
It was so cold.
It was right before New Year's in Istanbul.
So cold.
So it was cold, but forget about the cold. Talk about the experience itself.
Okay, well, I was having an anxiety attack driving up to the damn thing because I was like, whoa, I don't want to do this. You know, I was like, I think one of the only people when mom was like, oh, let's do a hot air balloon ride. I was like, no, we're not doing it. You know, and then she's like, just do it. And I was like, okay, well, fine, we're going to do it. So it was like literally the ass crack of dawn. Not even, it was still dark. And I just see them like blowing up the thing and I'm like, there's no way this is happening around. And then you have to like lunge into the basket. Like,
Yeah,
they don't have straps apparently. Like,
I did.
they just like, they're like, put your feet on my hand. They just like throw you into the basket.
They treat you like an apple in a basket.
They give you like a little,
jump into my picnic.
They give you a bag too with a croissant. They're like, I'm sorry if you're having an anxiety attack. Here's a croissant and a water for you. Like, you know, like a general.
But let's be honest, was
No, it was
even though you
great.
might have anticipated it, was the anxiety justified?
Well, no, because you get up there and you're like, this isn't that bad, you know? And it was great. It was awesome to look at the sunrise and stuff like that, aside from the fact that you're literally shivering in your boots. But
I mean, if it was in warmer times, yes.
I think I would appreciate it a little more if it was a little warmer.
But we went all the way up 800, I think 90 meters, so about 2,200 feet from
I mean, we got some great pictures.
The view, and the sun was coming up, obviously, and you get the entire view of the valley. To me, I said I'm not the biggest fan of heights, but I felt it was very stable, very comfortable. The move up is super gradual.
Okay, people take pictures.
Yeah.
That was weird. I was like, what? Like these women, which funny enough, I was looking for my prom dress like I think 2 weeks ago, and I came across a picture of one of the Turks in their big ass dresses in front of the hot air balloons, and I'm like, you know, I honestly probably might have seen this bitch take this damn picture.
Because
like, you know, like,
what Camila's explaining is that because it's a spectacle at dawn.
There's like
where
balloons
you have 100 to 120 balloons sometimes. Not that they go up simultaneously, but almost in like two waves. And then as the balloons are going up, they're all these different colors. And if there are no clouds in the sky like it was for us,
well, we had to have perfect conditions, which we got really lucky because we met this other family who had to cancel like twice.
Mm-hmm.
So we got really lucky.
We got very lucky, and women come with their flowing dresses to take pictures with
in the freezing cold.
In the freezing cold with the balloons behind, but I'm sure those are very striking.
Oh, they're great. I've seen the pictures.
Images.
But yeah, I came across them and I was like, oh, that's really funny.
So that's a ritual in this valley, in this area that's touristic, where you see these balloons going up, coming down. They give you a fake champagne when you land. They give you a certificate. They treat you like as if you're Aaron Eckhart and you've gone through the Pacific.
It was great. They were so nice, and they took videos of you on like what was it, a GoPro camera or a 360 camera.
Yeah.
They took a picture of you with your family. So I thought that they were
I think
great.
After the experience, I would definitely do, whether it's in a winery country or somewhere else, I would really recommend it to anybody. I think it was really peaceful, and then as a family, I mean, yes, we were super, super cold, but go at a warmer time, and that was Cappadocia.
No, yeah, that was great. It was a good way to start your morning. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, we were there 3 days, and so I think I wish that it was summer so we could go down to the southwest and go
I'm guessing we'll probably
go to the resorts and beaches, but maybe that'll be for another time when we go. So we've talked, we talked about the overall country. We talked about overall impressions, our first times. We talked a lot about the food. Obviously, throughout this, we ate some fantastic stuff in Cappadocia too. We had a lovely wine dinner where you had the testi kebab.
The wine actually, I'm not.
I forgot to mention that.
I was gonna bring it up for the food. The wine isn't bad at all. Actually, I was like, they're not very wine culture-y, but I thought the ones that we had were great.
Yeah.
I like my favorite one. I think was the one that we had in Cappadocia.
Yeah, it was a Cappadocian red wine.
That one was pretty good.
And I wish that we had actually gone to the winery and done some stuff there.
Well, yeah, we saw the winery, but with the tour guide that we were with, he didn't bring us there. He pointed it out, but I was like,
yeah. So that dinner was special too. So then overall, to kind of conclude, this very long episode, which we'll break up for you guys. let's talk about some travel tips overall. For okay, you have a lot. Okay, I have some too. I have my thoughts, and then but first we want to talk about Hotel Amira. So that's where we stayed in the old city.
Honestly, mad appreciation for those people. I look forward to their breakfast every single day. I was stressed out. Okay, I don't stress